Okay, we're here on Liquid Lunch. It's me, Hugh, and Mary's my co-host today. Right, Mary? There's a big, long story behind that, isn't there?
There is. There's always a big, long story.
Yeah, it's all working out, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. And we're very happy to have Jesse Ratner now joining us, who's opened up... what's the name of the business?
It's called
Jesse?
Float Toronto.
Float Toronto.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about how you came, and you're from Vancouver, but you decided to come and do it in Toronto. And kind of a story there.
Yeah, like essentially in a nutshell, we decided to kind of make a pivot last minute to come and start the business in Toronto, where there's pretty much a lack of float tanks altogether. So, we were in a position where we really only had one shot at this.
Yeah.
And we really wanted to give ourselves the best chance to succeed.
Right. And
we were two young guys with, ambition and into just really doing what was right for the business to succeed. So we came out and checked out the city, got a really good impression right off the bat.
Was that your first time in Toronto?
No, not my first time in Toronto. We actually, me and my business partner Sean, we met at McGill in Montreal. So we were kind of out on the East Coast, and inevitably you make your way around to, at least Toronto. We came to Toronto a few times.
Business in Toronto?
It ended up being a really great. It was a great move, to be honest. It's gone really, really smooth.
Wow.
All things considered.
No kidding,
and
that's risky.
People are really loving it, and the community over there on Queen West has totally embraced us.
Wow.
And it's awesome. It's just been a great, almost 2 years now.
Oh, yeah, you were saying, or we were talking before, how that's really happening where you're located in that part of Queen Street. It's just that was dead a few years ago. Now it's just going crazy down there. Condos, businesses, all kinds of stuff just happening down there.
It's an amazing neighborhood.
Yeah.
I got no complaints about that neighborhood. And there's just so many characters hanging around there that are up to interesting things.
Full of characters.
Yeah, artists, right?
Totally. And I always say this, but the Float Center and any other float center, I'm sure would agree with this, it somehow is some kind of magnet for interesting people. They just flock, and everybody wants to connect, and everybody wants to, play off each other and help each other. And all of our clients are just super easy to deal with.
Are they portable?
The float tanks?
Yeah.
No, they're very stationary.
Okay, too bad. I was going to say you should bring one over here.
Yeah.
We could do a show around it.
No, you should come there and just try it out, though.
Bring the cameras.
So wait
That's
a second.
a whole other show.
I want to know why you got into this business. Why this particular business? What's the story of that?
The story of that is really, we heard about it online, and we're living in Vancouver, and there, we got interested in it because it just seemed like such an interesting sort of concept to, block out all external stimulus and relax in this pool of Epsom salt water. Doesn't that sound interesting to everybody?
Sounds wonderful.
Well, really, there was just nowhere to do it. So we tried it in a few odd places here and there, in people's basements, and driving to other centers and stuff like that. And it was one of these things where one thing kind of just leads to another. Initially, it was just sort of a passion thing, let's go try it because we were interested in it, and we wanted to do it because we found some benefits in it. And then it was later where we're like, hey, people are going to want to do this. The timing is right for this, actually.
Totally.
And
because we live in a world with
out.
way too much stimulus. So it's nice to have the exact opposite for a little while. It really gives you something to compare.
Now,
sorry, not to interrupt you, but I'm very interested in this.
You gotta cut me off.
Does it have health benefits too, as far as the salt water and the?
Totally.
Does it detox?
Well, we're going to get into that. But I just want to ask him because I want to know what happened on his first time, because it must have been something that happened on your first experience that really turned you to say, this is valuable, this is going to be an exciting business to be in, right?
Yeah, I've always had this thought where you have ideas throughout your whole life, right? And sometimes the timing isn't right for those ideas to come into fruition. It might be a good idea, but for whatever reason, you don't have the means, or you don't have the energy, or you don't have the schedule or whatever. When we found floating, and we first tried it and just had an amazing experience. To us, it really was all it was cracked up to be, which was just a really deep physical and mental relaxation. which who couldn't benefit from that?
I am so wanting to go there right now.
And it was sort of like this timing thing where, for whatever reason, me and Sean, my business partner, we just both got really into it, and we were both kind of in that point where we weren't really loving what we were doing enough that it was going to be like, last for a long time, and we kind of just got to a point where like, let's do this, and we made it happen. Yeah, it was just like the long kind of 3-year push, figuring out what that was going to look like, and then all of a sudden you're in a situation where like the business plan is there, and you have all of the sort of the money in place, and you're finding a location, and then one thing kind of leads to another.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
It's hard to explain how it all happened, to be honest. Even when you ask me that, it's like, why did we do all this, and how did it all happen? But it really is just like,
I think sometimes things are meant to happen.
It totally felt like that. It was like just meant to happen. And I think we were somehow able to recognize that the timing was right for floating. Like, it's just the right time for floating right now. People are coming in and just having amazing, like, just a really good experience in there, and just like finding a lot of relief.
It's a type of therapy.
Totally. And a type of self-therapy, which is one of the reasons I like it so much, is like, there's no questionnaire, there's no, certainly no physical contact like a massage. It's like you come in, you get your own experience, you have your own room with your own shower, your own float tank, you're in full control. Everything that's happening is from you. You come out, no one's saying anything to you, no one's asking you anything, you just get to leave and then process and decide whether, there's a benefit for you or not.
And I was asking before if anyone ever has that adverse reaction, but you said surprising.
I mean, it's not for everybody, so it's not like, not everybody who comes in is like, converted and wants to do it all the time, but there's a surprisingly low amount of people who have like a freak out or anything like that. Yeah.
Which is a good measuring stick. No, seriously, it's a good measuring stick. Like, therapists could work with you guys. Bring patients to see what their anxiety levels are like.
Totally. And it's people are definitely using it to lower anxiety. Like, it lowers your stress hormones because of the lack of stimulus. So when you're in the float tank, you don't have to process any information. So you can just relax, and your brain, because it doesn't sense anything coming in, it can just kind of go into a more restful, regenerative mode. Almost like
does
it's
it feel
gonna,
like you go within yourself? That's almost.
It kind of feels like you're going into a meditative state without having to try to meditate.
Nice.
It kind of puts you there.
I'm wondering if it's now, I've heard about these things for a long time. I mean, I've heard about them, but I've never actually been this close to
one.
Actually, maybe being able to experience it.
You're going to experience it.
But it was funny because I kind of assumed everybody almost, but I was talking to one of the other fellows here who's from Montreal, and he'd never heard of this before. So there's still room for people to find out about this, and now obviously people in Toronto can actually try it out. But besides relaxation, I mean, I think, weren't there movies like this, like Flatliners or something like that?
There's a famous one called Altered States.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Is that in these float tanks?
What do you mean, is that in these float tanks?
Is that because...
Now I'm getting all these ideas for business.
Right? Oh, you are?
Yes. Well, you could have evening float tanks, right? It's a whole different scene, like how we have the evening black and white filming that goes on here. It makes like a very artsy.
Well, we're going to find out what Jesse's doing there.
Get out my brain.
I'm sure they're already doing stuff like that, but
we are.
Really?
Like evening floats?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty much open all the time. So people come really early and people come really late.
Now, I've heard things like you can go into because basically it's sensory deprivation, right?
Exactly.
You've got no sight, you got no sound. You're floating, so all your gravity is gone, right? And you're not feeling anything, right? You're not hearing anything.
Like being in the womb.
It is something like that, yeah.
It's exactly like that. It's exactly. It's a total restriction of all external stimulus. And even the water is set to a neutral temperature that's basically the average skin temperature. So when you really relax it and the water settles, the boundaries between your body and the water sort of dissolve, and you'll have this moment where you just don't feel your body, and at first you might kind of like move your leg, or just kind of move just to make sure it's there, honestly, and I still do it.
Oh my God.
It's like almost like a twitch or something like that.
That's something.
But it's a pretty interesting feeling.
No
so
kidding.
It makes you wonder because they talk about that our minds are infinite, right? Some people talk about that. So if we're all of a sudden no longer tied through our senses to our body, it almost makes you wonder where you can experience
the highest
infinity,
meditative state,
maybe, or something.
That's
right?
the highest meditative state, is if you can be nothing. Like in meditation, if you can feel like you're nothing, if you have something that can put someone into that, like meditation class people that are having trouble breaking through, because that happens for people, well, then that just puts them right there.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, often in meditation, you're trying to empty everything, right? And empty and not pay attention to the thoughts. Just let them come in and let them go out. Concentrate on being.
Well, that's how the
present
Dalai
moment.
Lama gets to a place where he's like, we're all one.
Yeah.
Because he's in a constant state of that non-ness, and yet he's everything, just like you, Hugh.
Like an
Let's
upside-down gorilla?
contemplate that. What? Okay, you'll have to explain that to me later.
Now, you mentioned you got quite a cast of characters that come in, that the float tank world seems to draw a certain kind of interesting person.
For sure.
But I'm curious, what are some of the reports? Have you had any really extraordinary reports from some of your customers about some of the experiences that they've had?
Definitely. And from all fronts as well, which is what is so interesting, because you'll have a lot of people who come in who have pretty serious physical ailments, and things like fibromyalgia and other types of chronic pain that are pretty tricky to deal with, because you're talking about people who have tried a lot of medication that has and hasn't worked, and the float tank, because it's like the nature of the therapy, it's kind of coming at you at all angles. It's relieving you physically by removing gravity, and it's also taking away all the stimulus. So the nervous system can also relax. And when you start looking at like most medical conditions, not that I don't want to come across like we're like a cure-all or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But just lowering the stress levels and letting the nervous system relax just kind of helps everything.
Totally.
So there's definitely been a few cases of people who have, said, that they, I haven't been able to move this way in 2 years. I haven't slept this way since I can remember, things like that. But then there's also people who are like really sort of, high-level actors and things like that who are using it very regularly to work on lines and get in the zone and things like that. And that's also really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there's a whole group of athletes who have really gravitated towards the tank,
can see that
because
too.
they can also visualize what they're going, their performance, and of course, get the physical relief from like the intense training. And even the best player in the NBA right now is using the tank regularly, and that's been like just such a great news story for anyone involved in floating, because it's such good press. Stephen Curry, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's like a guard on Golden State, and he just like shooting lights out. He's on fire. So has his game or his performance increased since he's been? Well, he's kind of reached this next level of performance in in the NBA, where he's about to win. He won the championship, and he's about to win his second straight MVP. And like in the middle of this season, a story broke that he's been floating, and it was just like such a great. It was awesome. So you would really have to say, by the sounds of your story, that the stars lined up somehow for you and your business partners to make this happen, and it just keeps on unfolding and happening. I believe so, in some version, yeah. Very in some way, there was something that aligned for this to happen. And if it didn't, I'm just going to go with it through the placebo effect that's what happened. Well, and you're definitely helping humanity, and people are more stressed now than they've ever been. So anything that works to relieve the stress, like you say, is huge. And pain. Those are the two big factors. Doesn't matter how happy your life is, if you're in chronic pain, you still need something Another thing that I also really like about the tank is that in the time that we're living in, which is an amazing time, and in an amazing city, there's lots going on, which is really cool. The tank offers a sort of designated time for integration to happen with whatever's going on in your life, because it's just a time where it's only you, without your phone, without distractions, without sounds, without even your body, to just kind of let you process what's been happening in your life. And even if people come to the float tank initially just out of curiosity or to get some physical relief, inevitably you end up kind of having a sort of introspective thought pattern that I think everyone can benefit from.
Totally.
Now, how long do people usually go in for? Is there a standard time?
Yeah, there is. So we have the time blocks totally blocked off. We offer, I think, 50 sessions a day now, and they're either 1 hour or 2 hour sessions. So the 2 hour sessions are just sort of a bonus thing that we do. So you can just book those sessions for the same price, like you're using your credits or something like that. And so those are the first sessions of the day are 2 hours, and the last sessions of the day are 2 hours, and then everything in between is 1 hour.
And how many tanks do you have?
5.
5 tanks.
Yeah. So you can come with a friend, and even though it's a personal experience, it's still kind of nice that you come, you guys both have a float, and then after you can
compare notes.
Hang out and just talk about it. Or a lot of couples come and then go out for dinner and stuff like that after.
Now, I heard that you go in for an hour, but it might seem like you're in there for I don't know, a day or a week, or it might seem like you're only in there for 5 minutes. Like your sense of time
totally
gets distorted. What's your experience with that?
Yeah, the float is different for everybody, and that's another thing to keep in mind. Because I know we've talked about a few things in here, but at the same time, I know it's sort of I always tell people to keep an open mind about what the experience is going to be like for them, because I can't tell you what it's going to be like for you, and it's probably not going to be like it was for somebody else. But yeah, when you get in the tank, because you have no sense of time after a little while, it's almost like you're when you wake up in the morning and you're still dreaming, but you're not fully awake yet. You're kind of lingering in that sort of mind frame a lot of the time in the tank.
Highest state of meditation that people spend years trying to achieve. It's very interesting.
That time is pretty slippery in there. Let's put it that way. Especially in the longer floats, you get in and all of a sudden you think it's been 20 minutes, and the music, because music comes on to wake you up. Music comes on and you're just like, what? Where did it go?
Wow.
What was that about?
Yeah.
So,
sometimes do people fall asleep in there?
Definitely, every day.
Yeah.
But they wake up when the music comes on, because after an hour of silence, even because the music's very light, when you hear gentle music come on, you kind of come to it.
But even the sleep would be a different kind of sleep than the normal sleep, right?
Definitely.
Because you're in that completely no senses.
But also, it kind of is something where it takes a little bit of getting used to. You kind of get the hang of it. Eventually, once you've figured out your ideal pre-float routine, where you haven't eaten anything right before, so you're not hearing your stomach going in there, and you haven't had caffeine in a few hours, so that your mind can relax, and you know which position's comfortable for you in there, which is different for everybody. So once you've had 3, 4, or 5 floats or something, you can kind of get in and get right into that, comfortable space, and give yourself the best chance of going into that really deep relaxation. So, the first time you might just spend the whole hour just kind of getting used to the buoyant feeling of not having, your body in the way.
So how does it work then? Do people have to be members, or do you have trials, or how does it actually work?
We pretty much made it really easy, and sort of streamlined the whole process of getting in there. In terms of our pricing is more affordable than anybody, I think, in the world. I don't know, that was a pretty bold statement, I don't know that, but it's pretty affordable compared to what's out there. Some people charge double what we charge, so just to kind of give you an idea. But we have all types of packages and a really affordable membership. And you can book everything online. You don't even have to call in. You can see exactly which time slots are available, select it, book it, come in. Nice. And then when you come in, we have everything there for you. You don't have to bring anything. we have towels, and you have a shower in your own room with, a special kind of shampoo that's going to get all the salt out after. Earplugs, robes. There's like a vanity where you can dry your hair. It's like there's a little lounge where you can have some tea after.
Over there, right?
Pardon me?
I said I'll see you later to Hugh, and I'm asking if your people are still over there because I'm leaving. Going right now.
Yeah, they're there, but it's pretty booked. You got to book it.
You're busy.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
that's fantastic, actually. That's wonderful.
And what about other services? I mean, you were sort of talking about maybe some other. We were talking about oxygen. We were talking about infrared. What else do you have in store?
Well, we don't have anything else at the float center.
Yeah.
Right now, we just have the float tanks. We have a retail space that was like, it's a perfect space for us, but it's pretty much maxed out with we can't fit it. It's like every square foot is used up, so we don't have any room to add any more modalities. But different float centers have like saunas and massage, oxygen bars, things like that. In the future, hope if we can manage to get another one open, which I think we will be able to in the next little bit here. We're thinking about putting an infrared sauna in, which is another thing that has just massive health benefits, and it's also something that could fit right into that whole scenario.
Maybe you could pump oxygen into the float tank.
That's something that people do as well.
Right?
That's another option.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Totally. Like hyperbaric chamber type thing.
You have really clear thought. And
Or whatever. I don't know what happens there. But
have you never had oxygen before?
I did. I went to one in Vancouver.
Okay. I'm not.
In fact, I'm breathing oxygen right now, a little bit.
Yes, you are.
Was it an oxygen bar?
It was an oxygen bar.
Okay.
Near the library in Vancouver.
Right, yeah, we were talking about that.
About 20 years ago or whatever.
Just three Vancouver people hanging out, right?
I know. Well,
Awesome.
Now, and you mentioned Vancouver, and that there was more going on in terms of float tanks in Vancouver, but that you're maybe one of the only providers in Toronto, which is...
There's a few out here now.
Yeah.
I think there's 4 centers here now. Some of them have like 1 or 2 tanks in them. There's one in the Danforth that has a few tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the West End.
There's not much here. There's not that many tanks.
Too, right?
There's so many people here.
Yeah.
And there's definitely not that many float tanks. But there's also like we do a sort of we have a sort of program where people come in and help out at our center on a weekly basis, where we do like a maintenance day where we kind of do any small projects we need to do, and we just shut down for half a day and kind of take care of anything on the back end that needs to be taken care of. And there's been people coming in who we sort of mentor in a way, who are opening up centers out in the GTA.
Oh, wow.
So there's definitely going to be more tanks available for people around this area in the next little while, which is good.
And you think, I don't know when I've been hearing about these for a long time, but it's interesting that now it's becoming accessible. Like that you guys are actually here and people can go book an appointment.
Exactly. That's it.
Okay.
So, do you think this is something that's not going to be a fad, something that's going to be, people are going to just realize the value of this going forward, and there's going to be more and more demand for something like this? I
think so. Yeah, definitely. From what I can see, it's going to happen pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like people are just really enjoying it, and I'm, it's pretty nice. It's a pretty nice experience.
It's like being able to have a holiday.
And I think it's actually going to go to another level.
Totally.
Personally, I think that there's going to have to be places made where people can go for a couple days.
Really?
I think that whole sort of experience is going to have to develop, where people can actually get away and have sort of a condensed, restful. Some kind of
that's
vacation.
an interesting concept, right? That's really interesting.
I was just thinking an application of that in Holland. What they do for people when you're done having surgery and you're recuperating, sometimes you need an extra couple of days where you don't need to cook and you don't need to return to your life yet, because they understand the value of. So if somebody was having a medical procedure, even if it was cosmetic, they might want to have some downtime afterwards with something like that.
Now, have you ever done that, Jesse? Because it's your place. Like, have you ever said, "Listen, I'm going into the tank for a couple of days"?
Oh, I didn't mean like people have to float for a couple of days, but just I think that the whole like like people are going to have to pay more attention to like lowering their stress levels.
Totally.
You know, because we're not really wired for this modern life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're keeping up, and people are doing okay, but there's it's pretty fast paced.
Yeah.
And it's growing exponentially. So I think we have to keep that in mind. You know, we have to make sure that we're taking care of the body. You know, the framework.
But is there anybody you know or you that's like gone in and for like a really extended period just to see what's going to happen?
Yeah, for sure.
What happened?
I mean, there was a guy who, because we have some friends who run a float center down in Portland, and they're sort of the cornerstone of the industry in a certain way. Like, where there's a float conference there every year that we go to, and they have a funny story about, or not such a funny story, but they had a guy who rented the room out for 24 hours, and like pretty much stayed in the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah, and he came out to go to the washroom and went back in, but I think he was some kind of super athlete, like one of those like super triathletes, you know, who like does like a 24-hour race or something, and then went for the 24-hour float to recalibrate.
And what happened? Anything?
He was fine.
That was Bruce Jenner.
The interesting thing about the tank is, like, you could stay in for a long time and your skin doesn't get all wrinkly or anything because of the magnesium. I was picturing. Yeah. You don't turn into a prune at all. Your skin actually feels really nice when you come out.
That's pretty cool. Okay. Wow. Anything else you want to leave us with today?
No, that was great. Yeah, no, I don't think so. If you guys have any more questions.
Well, we put the website up there so people can go there. So they can book even now. They're not a member. They can book online, book a float.
Oh, yeah. There's intro offers for new clients, and all the information is on the website.
Okay.
Yeah, float-toronto.com. And then we're on most of the social medias if that's where people like to search through as well.
Cool. Very cool. Jesse, great to meet you.
Great to meet you guys.
Great to hear
Thanks
about this. Sounds exciting. Sounds like
I'm ready. Just slide down.
She's got to get going.
You guys aren't going to ask me the five. You guys aren't going to ask me the 5 most important questions of the universe.
That's Lalo's show.
Oh, that's the last show.
Did you want those questions?
No, that's okay.
Well, she'll have you back. You know, she'll.
I like to talk to her, actually.
Okay, well, let's do that right after this.
Perfect.
That's it for the show today. But thanks. Thanks, Mary, for doing this, and thanks, Jesse, for coming in.
Thanks for having me. That was great.
So we'll see you next time right here.